Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is TVP World. You're watching World News. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and these are the latest headlines. Between February 24th, 2022 and the end of last year, nearly 700 children were killed in Ukraine and Russian-occupied territories. Now, the UN Human Rights Office published a report on Friday detailing the devastating toll the war has taken on Ukrainian children.
The extensive use of explosive weapons by Russia in populated areas of Ukraine has resulted in a tragic body count, 669 deaths and roughly 1,800 injuries among children. The actual numbers could be higher.
The ongoing hostilities and occupation of parts of Ukraine by the Russian Federation have caused large-scale human rights violations and inflicted unimaginable suffering on millions of children. Their rights have been undermined in every aspect of life, leaving deep scars, both physical and psychological.
The UN Human Rights Office published a report on Friday detailing how death, injury and lasting family separation have influenced the lives of Ukrainian children. More than 700,000 were displaced internally, and a further 1.7 million became refugees. Many were separated from their fathers.
We spoke to a mother whose child, whose hair had turned gray because he hadn't slept properly for a year because of air raid sirens going off every night in his home.
3 years of the war launched by Russia has also left a toll on those who found themselves under occupation. Many are subject to coercive policies of the Russian authorities in the occupied territories, which include imposing Russian citizenship and restricting access to education in the Ukrainian language.
Ukraine's general staff has firmly denied any involvement in the attack on a gas measurement station in the Russian town of Sudzha. This comes after Russian authorities accused Ukraine of being behind the strike. Now, in a statement issued Friday, the Ukrainian military called the allegations part of a disinformation campaign aimed at discrediting the country. Drone footage posted on social media shows a gas measurement station in Sudzha, in Russia's Kursk region, on fire. The blaze broke out overnight from Thursday into Friday. Sudzha was briefly under Ukrainian control, but Ukrainian forces later withdrew, though a small part of the region remains in Ukrainian hands. The station was the only route through which Russian gas passed on its way through Ukraine to Europe until Ukraine declined to renew a transit agreement in January. The dust has settled after last night's European Council meeting, and one thing is clear. European leaders failed to reach an agreement on a multi-billion euro proposal to support Ukraine. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, for the second time in 2 weeks, refused to back the package, stalling efforts to send further aid to Kyiv. Our EU correspondent Angela Skujins has a report.
Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said important steps were taken at a European Council on Thursday in the Belgian capital. Now, the comments came early Friday morning as that Prime Minister wasn't able to speak publicly. Yesterday, he was whisked away at the European Council, where I'm reporting from, to attend those high-level talks that stretched well into the evening, and the agenda was stacked. Those 27 leaders discussed the ongoing developments in the Middle East, as well as oceans and a range of other issues. But according to that Polish leader, the most important advancements came in the form of deregulation, migration, and as well as defence. Now, he was particularly happy that those European leaders heaped praise on his 2.5 billion euro project to fortify Poland along its eastern flank. Now, the Prime Minister announced this initiative early last year. The aim is to protect the Central European country against threats from Russia and Belarus. Now, he was also happy that those other European countries have finally heeded Warsaw's warning of potential Russian aggression by 2030. Let's take a listen to what he had to say regarding that.
To put it simply, by 2030 Europe must be, in terms of its army, armament and technology, clearly stronger than Russia, and it will be. If nothing changes, if we maintain this direction, Europe will be stronger in every aspect. I'm not including nuclear warheads, but you know, that's a different aspect. However, when it comes to conventional weapons, the army and the number of soldiers, we will simply be much stronger. No one will dare to raise a hand against Poland or Europe, and that's the goal that, in my opinion, everyone has already accepted, understood, and is moving to the same direction.
What is interesting is that there are a range of subjects that Poland is invested in that didn't gain much traction. The first being the EU High Representative Kaja Kallas's €20 billion military package. Now, the aim is to send roughly 1.5 million rounds of ammunition as well as air defence and missile systems. But the buy-in wasn't very high. We know that some European countries, most notably France and Italy, were against such a measure. We also heard diplomats say that it was poorly designed and even poorly executed. We also know that Hungary used its veto power the second time in 2 weeks to raise any concrete measures for Ukraine from the EU to the ground. But we know that the Polish Prime Minister said early Friday morning that he's looking forward to talks in France in the next 2 weeks. The aim is to shore up support from a coalition of the willing to gain and to give more to Kyiv when it comes to the battlefield and those ceasefire negotiations. But the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk was also critical of these talks. He said there's been a range of conferences, high-level meetings, video calls, and not a lot of results. So we're waiting with bated breath to see if those European leaders can put the pedal to the metal and get some physical outcomes for Ukraine. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has warned that authorities will not tolerate any threats to public order amid planned opposition protests following the arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. İmamoğlu, a leading opposition figure and potential challenger to Erdogan in the 2028 presidential election, was detained on Wednesday as part of an investigation into alleged corruption and ties to a terrorist organization. Erdogan condemned the opposition's call for protests, particularly from the Republican People's Party, which urged peaceful demonstrations in response to İmamoğlu's arrest. The Turkish government called the protests push irresponsible, while the CHP claims the mayor's detention is politically motivated, describing it as a coup against the will of the people. The party had planned to hold primaries on March 23rd to choose their 2028 presidential candidate, with İmamoğlu widely expected to be the nominee. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has warned that authorities would not tolerate any threats to public order in the wake of the planned opposition protests following the arrest of Ekrem İmamoğlu. Now, the president condemned the opposition's call for protests, particularly those of the Republican People's Party, which has urged peaceful demonstrations against İmamoğlu's arrest.
Look, I am saying very openly and clearly, the street that the Republican People's Party leader has called you to is a dead-end street. Do not forget. He's pointing to the street to defend thievery, unlawfulness, fraud, instead of the courtroom. How saddening is it that the CHP, under the direction of the current administration, is quickly losing its quality of being a party that does politics on a legitimate basis due to its asymmetric relations it has built with illegal organizations.
The International Olympic Committee's outgoing president, Thomas Bach, refused to comment when asked about Russian President Vladimir Putin's congratulatory message to newly elected IOC President Christy Coventry. Russia, whose Olympic Committee was suspended following the invasion of Ukraine, is hoping the leadership change will pave the way for a return to the Olympic fold. Bach also spoke about his transition role with Coventry until he leaves office in June.
Congratulations. You cannot choose who is congratulate you when, and that's it. And with regard to the partition of responsibilities, I have assured her that from today on, no decision will be taken over her head. That this will happen in full consultation. And if there are different opinions between her and me, her opinion will prevail.
Polish President Andrzej Duda and his Hungarian counterpart Tomasz Szukuk mark Polish-Hungarian Friendship Day on Friday in Kaposvár, Hungary. The day was established by both countries' parliaments nearly 2 decades ago and has been observed every year, alternating between Poland and Hungary. Relations between Warsaw and Budapest, however, are currently at an all-time low. Duda's visit to Hungary is part of his farewell tour, with his presidential term soon coming to an end.
It is with great pleasure that I accepted the invitation of President Tomasz Sujok to join here in Hungary for the annual Polish-Hungarian Friendship Days. Thank you very much for the visit. I would also like to thank you, Mr. President, for the last year's Polish-Hungarian Friendship Days in Stary Sącz. It was your first visit to Poland after taking office to a place that is significant for Polish and Hungarians' friendship. When you look at Stary Sącz and Kaposvár, you can see many similarities even in architecture that point to the shared history of our nations.
And with that, we conclude this edition of World News. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.